There's this specific kind of moment that happens during the World Cup. You're in a room somewhere, a living room, a pub, maybe someone's kitchen. The match is on, and everyone around you is leaning forward. Someone is gripping a cushion like it personally wronged them. Someone else just stood up, for no obvious reason at all. The tension in the room feels almost physical, like you could reach out and touch it. And you're sitting there thinking, when does this end? Not in a frustrated way, not even really bored, just quietly, honestly, when is this going to be over so we can talk about something? And then the goal goes in. The room just explodes. Someone screams, someone grabs you, someone is actually crying, real tears, over a match involving people they have never met, in a country they've probably never visited. And you clap along because that feels like the right thing to do. You smile, you say something like, yes, finally, but inside, nothing moved. And here's the thing. The strange part isn't the indifference. The strange part is watching everyone around you and quietly thinking, what is happening to them right now that isn't happening to me? That question is actually worth sitting with, because the psychology behind it says something genuinely interesting, not about football, about how people form emotional connections, about why some feelings just transfer and others don't, about what it actually means when a shared experience lands for almost everyone in the room except you. And if you've ever quietly wondered whether something is wrong with you for not feeling it, this is going to change how you see that. Here's the thing. Almost nobody says out loud, the people who feel nothing during a World Cup final aren't missing the drive that makes it matter to everyone else. The drive is the same, the need, the hunger that pull toward belonging and shared intensity. It's all there. It's just going somewhere else entirely. And we'll get to where, because that's actually the most interesting part of all of this. But first, we need to understand what's really happening in the brain of someone who genuinely does care. Because you can't really understand the absence of something until you know what the thing actually is. When millions of people watch the same match, they're not just watching a game, they're feeding one of the oldest needs the human brain has, the need to belong to something, to feel like your existence is connected to a group, a real living group. One that wins, sometimes loses, sometimes, and carries you along with it either way. For most of human history, that group was survival itself. The people around you were the people who hunted with you. Protected, you shared the danger with you. Being cut off from the group wasn't uncomfortable, it was fatal. So the brain evolved with this appetite for belonging so deep, so old that social exclusion activates the same pathways as physical pain. The World Cup at its core is a machine for feeding that appetite at an almost incomprehensible scale. It takes the oldest human need there is and gives it a jersey, a flag, and 90 minutes to feel it as intensely as possible. For the people it works on, it works completely. There's a psychologist named Robert Cialdini who noticed something interesting about university students back in the 1970s. The morning after their football team won, students were significantly more likely to wear their school's branded clothing. Not because they'd played, not because they'd coached. A lot of them hadn't even watched, but somehow the wins still felt personal. When the team won, the language shifted to "we won." When the team lost, something else happened. The pronoun quietly changed. They played terribly today. Not we. The ego just stepped back to avoid the damage. What Cialdini was documenting has a name: social identity. The way people absorb parts of who they are from the groups they belong to. The team's success starts to feel like your success. The team's failure becomes something you need to put distance between yourself and just to feel okay. It's not irrational. It's just how the brain protects itself through the groups it belongs to. But here's the part that actually changes things. For any of that to happen, for a win to feel personal, for a loss to genuinely sting, for a penalty shootout to feel like something you're living through and not just watching, you need to have already invested something. Before the whistle, before the tournament, before the first match of the season years ago, you need to have already placed a piece of yourself inside that group. Without that, the goal goes in, the room explodes, and you feel roughly what you'd feel watching strangers celebrate anything, vaguely warm. Mostly just curious why everyone around you has suddenly lost the ability to sit down. It's not emotional flatness. It's the absence of one very specific thing. An investment nobody told you to make and that you simply never did. The World Cup adds one more layer that makes this even stranger for some people. It's not just a team, it's a country. For some people, that makes everything bigger. The belonging that was already there gets amplified. Now it's not just my club, it's my flag, my language, the place I grew up. The emotional stakes multiply. But for others, and this is the part that almost never gets named, the national framing actually makes the whole thing harder, not easier, because you didn't choose your country, you were born into it. And if you've spent years building an honest relationship with what your country actually means to you, if your feelings about where you're from are layered, complicated, not something that fits neatly inside a flag, then being asked to feel simple, uncomplicated pride because 11 people from that country kicked a ball into a net can feel less like an invitation and more like a pressure. Not because you don't care about where you're from, but because you care in a way a 90-minute result can't really hold. The World Cup is built for simple loyalty, and simple loyalty isn't something everyone has access to. So here's the thing we started with. The people who can't make themselves care about the World Cup aren't missing the drive. They're not emotionally flatter than the people around them. They're not more rational, more detached, or more broken. The need to belong, that same deep, ancient hunger the World Cup feeds in billions of people, is fully alive in them. It's just found a different home. Maybe it lives in a friendship where you actually feel known, not just included known. Maybe it's in a community built around something you genuinely love. A creative field, a subculture, some shared obsession that made you feel for the first time like you found your people. Maybe it's in work that actually matters to you, where the wins feel personal because you made them happen. The intensity is there, the investment is there, that sense of my group, my stake, this is mine. All of it is there, it's just not wearing a jersey, and this is the thing that rarely gets said. The World Cup is one very specific vehicle for belonging. It works beautifully for the people it fits, but it asks for a particular kind of investment. In a particular kind of group, built in a particular way, usually early in life, usually through the environment you grew up in, not through anything you consciously chose. If that wasn't your environment, the vehicle just doesn't fit. That's not a malfunction, that's a mismatch. Most people who don't care about the World Cup and find themselves surrounded by people who do, end up doing something that's quietly exhausting. They perform, they react at the right moments, they make the right noises, they say things like come on and oh no, and that should have been a goal with just enough in their voice that nobody looks twice. Psychologists call this surface acting. It's performing an emotion you don't actually feel from the outside in, and it works socially. Nobody notices, but there's a cost, not a big dramatic cost, just a quiet, steady drain. That small, persistent effort of managing the gap between what you're showing and what you're actually feeling. It's that specific tiredness you get after a long evening where you were never quite yourself. That tiredness is real, and it has a name. It's not you being antisocial, it's the cost of a sustained performance with no genuine feeling underneath it. You can be generous toward other people's experience without having to manufacture your own. And there's something quietly honest in that, in being present without pretending. Here's the reframe. Apathy is indifference to everything, a kind of general flatness, an inability to find much that feels worth caring about at all. That's a real thing. And when it shows up in your own life, it's worth paying attention to. But the person who sits completely unbothered through an entire World Cup and then completely lights up when the conversation turns to something they actually love. That person isn't apathetic, they're selective. And selectivity isn't a flaw. It means your emotional attention is finite, and you've placed it somewhere real. That feeling you get when your thing, whatever your thing is, actually goes well. That's the same feeling the fan gets when their country scores. The investment is different, the vehicle is different, the flag is different, the feeling is the same. So if you've spent the last few weeks scrolling past scores and highlights with a calm, quiet indifference, nothing particularly interesting is wrong with you, your attachment system is working, it's just attached to different things. The need to belong, to feel part of something, to share something real with other people, it's all there in you, it's just taken a different shape. You didn't fail to build the feeling, you built it somewhere else. And the person who's been emotionally living and dying with every result of this tournament, they're not more human than you. They just found the feeling in a different place. When it's real, the feeling is the same. If something in this quietly clicked for you, consider subscribing. This channel is really about one thing: understanding why people think, feel, and behave the way they do. Including you. Including the parts of you that don't quite fit the room you're in. There's something new every week, and if this one landed at the right moment, the next one probably will too. One last thing. Today we looked at people who can't make themselves care about something the world expects them to care about. Next time we're going to look at the opposite. People who care too much about things that seem like they shouldn't matter that much. The person who's genuinely devastated for days after a fictional character dies. The person who can't stop replaying a conversation from 3 years ago. The person who feels other people's pain so deeply it becomes hard to carry, because there's a psychology behind that too. And it says something about how certain minds are wired that most people never hear explained clearly. That one's coming soon.